Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. Today let's talk about creating conflict in your writing. Conflict is essentially just the backbone of what story is. Without adequate conflict, there isn't really a story there, and there's nothing for readers to invest in. Now, there's a pretty simple formula for what conflict is, and that's your character's goal plus obstacles equals conflict. So when thinking about how to create more conflict in your story and how to create adequate and interesting conflict, we want to think about conflict existing on 3 levels: societal, interpersonal, and internal. You want to put your character in a situation where what they want is very hard to get, or they want 2 things but can only have one of them, or they're torn between what they want and some other greater good. So let's start by looking at the societal conflict. This is the large-scale conflict that exists within the story. This means anything in the environment or society that is holding your character back. Say you're writing a fantasy novel and you have a magical protagonist. If magic were outlawed in this world, that would be a societal conflict. This could even be, say, a character who lives below the poverty line, or a character who is stranded in a harsh natural environment. Even if, say, your character moves to a new city and they don't know anyone, that's a societal conflict. They're alone, they're isolated, they don't have any roots here. That's conflict. It might not be the focus of the novel, but it is adding conflict into it. Number 2 is interpersonal. This is probably where a lot of the bulk of the conflict that we're actually going to see play out in scene is going to take place. This means having conflict between a protagonist and an antagonist. But it also means conflict between the protagonist and their allies, or the characters around them. In fact, you probably want your protagonist to be in conflict with every other character in the story at some point. Think about what characters want from each other and how they're going to clash, and this includes characters who are on the same side of the conflict, so your character and their allies. The story will become much more interesting if they don't always see eye to eye, even if they have the same end goal. And finally, number 3 is the internal conflict. This is the foundation of your character's arc. What is your character wrestling with inside their mind? What internal trait or belief do they hold that's holding them back from success or happiness? How do they self-sabotage? What kind of maladaptive traits might they have, maybe based on their backstory? Give them values and put them in situations where those values are tested. Say a character who really values family having to turn away from their family in order to go on a quest for some greater good, or a character having to go into battle when what they value deeply is peace. Now, what's essential is that you want your story to have all 3 types of conflict. It might seem like a lot, but in a novel, this should be fairly easily achievable. Even a short story should have all 3 of these. So in a novel, you want to make sure that you have conflict in all of these different ways, and probably multiple instances of each. There should be large-scale conflict, those forces that are kind of just putting pressure on the character, and small-scale conflict, what's being bargained for in that specific moment, in every single scene. And what's important going along with this is that there are stakes. Without stakes, the conflict doesn't really feel important. Stakes are what your character has to lose if they don't achieve their goal. And the higher the stakes, the more potent the conflict becomes. Let's go back to that fantasy world that I talked about at the beginning, where magic is illegal and you have a magical protagonist. The stakes are much higher if the punishment for being caught using magic is death than if it's a sternly written letter. And as soon as you put your character in a situation where they have to use magic to achieve their goal, but they're at risk of being caught, now you have a situation that is just brimming with conflict. In order to raise the stakes and make that conflict important, you also have to let your character fail and let them fail a lot. In fact, you want your character to encounter more setbacks than they encounter successes. If they seem to just succeed all the way through, again, you'll start to lose stakes because the reader won't feel like there's really a risk of the character not succeeding. So that is how to create conflict in your story. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing videos coming at you every Tuesday and Friday. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.